Hey guys, welcome back to Memory Lane. Now, if you're happening on this channel for the first time, this is where I sit and I chat and I, reminisce on the good old days growing up in Jamaica back in the early 60s and into the 70s and maybe touching the 80s just a little bit. Right, so if you're here for the first time, welcome. And if you like what you hear, please don't forget to subscribe at the end or hit the like button, okay? So I just want to talk about, growing up as a kid in Jamaica back in the 60s then, that period when I was born. So today I just want to talk about kindergarten. kindergarten in the 60s, growing up in rural Jamaica, and my experiences then as a little kid. So I can recall in my village there was this family, and it was a big family actually. This gentleman had quite a few kids. I think he had 12 children, and I can recall he had 2 daughters. They were much older than I am, because if I can recall well, that gentleman, his first grandchild is much older than I am, right? But he had 2 daughters. And these 2 ladies, they were quite forward-thinking, really forward-thinking. And they decided in our little village, our little community there, they decided to start a school, a little school in the home. So I recall as a kid, man, they gathered up all the invited, families around the neighborhood who had kids of my, around my age, maybe a little bit older or younger, to come to school at their house. And back then, as a kid then, I recall that the notebook of choice then, or the notebook that was available, was not a book per se. We had what was called slate. And it was about the size of a page of a regular, a standard notebook, what we would call back then the exercise book, right? But it was slate, and the slate, it was a black thing. I don't know how to describe it. It was made of a black thing, and then you had these special pencils that you would use to write on them. Now when you write on it, it comes out in white. But it was easily erasable. You could just use something, a piece of wet paper, a wet piece of paper or cloth just to wipe it off. And as soon as it's dry again, you could write on it again. So I remember, man, that was my first foray in kindergarten. Yeah, and it was an exciting time, just to be able to start learning letters of the alphabet, numbers, and, that kind of stuff, and just the whole interaction, of having all the kids in the village being in the same spot at the same time with the same objective. It was quite interesting. It lasted for some time. I don't remember how long, but then I recall I was moved to, or most of the kids in the community were moved to or transitioned to another kindergarten school in the village. Now this was a more formal setting, right? Because this was a part of the elementary school. This was a segment of the elementary school. I recall that the kindergarten class or the school was located in this old kind of colonial building. The place was so scary. There were these big two-story old abandoned kind of buildings that was adjacent to the main school room, and there were these things going around that there were ghosts in these places. So up at that place was so creepy. So creepy. But that was where the kindergarten classroom was. It was not part of the main school building. I would say it was about maybe 300 feet, or maybe half a kilometer away, maybe not quite half a kilometer, but walking distance. It would take you about 5 minutes to walk up there, right, from the main school building. And so that was my second, or my first formal kindergarten setting. And of course, that was when I learned to use pencil and paper. I can recall attending school, and my grandmother would give me this. She would cut the exercise book or the notebook in half, because who could afford to give a kid a whole exercise book back then? Especially 60s, 70s. So it was just a way of economizing and saving. So she would cut the book in half, and I would get half of a pencil, just half a pencil. And that was all we had, or most kids had, using at school or in Kindy back then. And one thing I can recall, though, I would lose that half a pencil almost every single day. Now, my mom wasn't living at home. She was working outside the community, far away, and she would visit from time to time, and she would bring lots of pencils. I don't know where she got these pencils from. I think it was her employer gave them to her. So that was how my grandparents kept up with me and losing pencils, even though it was just half. But man, I would be lucky if I brought back home that half a pencil every day. But I would bring home the book, the exercise book. Yeah, so I still remember one of my my Kindy teacher to this day. Her name was Miss Miller. I don't know if she's still alive, but I remember her. Let's hope she's still alive. Yeah, and it was fun. We got lunch then, the good old bulgur, and maybe, stewed chicken or curry chicken back then. But those days were good. The formal setting of Kindy, those were important years where relationships were formed, friendships were formed. I learned how to interact with kids back then. Early childhood education, it's very important, right? So I just thought I'd share that with you today. It's not a very interesting video, but maybe you can tell me what Kindy was like for you. If you happen to have attended a kindergarten class. Mine was in the 60s, like I said, and so I'm not sure if you attended one and in what time period, but you can leave a comment here and there in the comment section below, and let me hear your experiences. I'm always interested to hear other people's experiences from the that may correlate or be similar to these videos that I share with you. These memories that I share. All right, so that's all for today. If you haven't subscribed already, hit the subscribe button. If you like this video today, hit the thumbs up. So until we chat again, take care of yourself. All right, memory lane.